Welcome back to the Sigma Evolution channel, where today we turn from archetypes and strategy to something more personal, the 7 qualities in a woman that win the Quizma'S attention. And notice the wording. She does not merely get his attention. She wins it. Beauty may earn the first glance, and pretending physical attraction does not matter would be dishonest. But beauty is only the introduction. The Quizma wants to know what creates the second look, the second conversation, and the desire to know more. He is an observer by nature, someone who notices tone, timing, curiosity, emotional control, contradiction, and the small details most people overlook. That is why the first quality is intelligence, not simply degrees or credentials, but the ability to think, question, explore, and hold a conversation that actually goes somewhere. He notices a woman who can develop an idea, challenge his perspective without becoming confrontational, and confidently say, "I don't know." When she does not know, beauty may turn his head, but intelligence pulls his chair closer because now she has moved from his eyes into his mind. The second quality is initiative. The Quizma has little interest in carrying an entire connection by himself. He notices the woman who sometimes sends the first message, suggests the restaurant, shares the article, or simply says, "I have an idea." Initiative signals reciprocity. It tells him she is not merely responding to his interest. She has interest of her own. Because he is comfortable alone, companionship has to compete with something valuable, his peace. He wants participation, not passive attendance. The third quality is emotional maturity, because every meaningful connection eventually encounters friction. What matters is what happens next. She can be angry without becoming cruel, disappointed without becoming vindictive, and say, "That bothered me," instead of creating a week-long Cold War. She can communicate what she feels, take responsibility when she is wrong, and understand that emotional maturity does not mean having no emotions. It means managing them without turning them into weapons. The fourth quality is honesty. The Quizma would rather hear an uncomfortable truth than organize his life around a comfortable lie. If she disagrees, she says so. If she needs space, she communicates it. If she misses him, she does not perform indifference because someone convinced her that mystery creates value. What matters is consistency. Her words and behavior live in the same neighborhood. The Quizma already spends enough time reading subtext in the world around him. He does not want his relationship to become another intelligence operation. The fifth quality is humility, confidence that does not require a public address system. A humble woman knows her value without needing every room to confirm it. She can compliment another woman without feeling diminished. Meet someone more knowledgeable without becoming threatened. Laugh at herself, and admit when someone else has a point. The Quizma notices the difference between genuine confidence and insecurity wearing expensive shoes. Humility tells him that truth matters more to her than protecting her ego. The sixth quality is individuality. The Quizma does not want a satellite. He wants another planet, a woman with her own gravity, interests, ambitions, friends, routines, and passions. Maybe she builds businesses, paints, writes, studies history, loves architecture, cooks, codes, trains, or knows an absurd amount about something he has never considered. The subject matters less than the fact that it belongs to her. He wants a woman who can love him without becoming him. Two people should grow together without sanding away every difference until they resemble matching furniture. Individuality gives the relationship oxygen and gives him something to keep discovering. The seventh quality, and perhaps the most distinctly Quizma quality of all, is attention to detail. She notices. He mentions something casually, and weeks later she remembers. She hears the pause before he says, "I'm fine." She knows the difference between his polite laugh and the real one. She remembers what excites him, what frustrates him, and what he tends to say when he is tired. None of these gestures are spectacular, which is precisely why they matter. Attention is cumulative. One small observation stacks on another until someone realizes they are actually being seen. And this affects the Quizma deeply because he is accustomed to being the observer. He notices everyone else. He reads the room, studies patterns, catches contradictions, and remembers details. But something changes when another observer begins reading him back. When we step back from all 7 qualities: intelligence, initiative, emotional maturity, honesty, humility, individuality, and attention to detail, they begin to look less like separate traits and more like 7 expressions of one thing: presence. Intelligence means she is mentally present. Initiative means she is behaviorally present. Emotional maturity means she is present with her feelings without being controlled by them. Honesty means she is present enough to communicate reality. Humility means ego does not dominate every exchange. Individuality means she remains present within her own identity. Attention to detail means she is present with him. That is ultimately what the Quizma responds to. Not perfection, but presence. Because eventually every relationship reaches an ordinary Tuesday. No perfect lighting. No dramatic entrance. No carefully selected photographs. There are bills, traffic, laundry, tired moods, forgotten groceries, and dinner still needs figuring out. Somewhere inside those ordinary Tuesdays, character quietly takes off its jacket and makes itself comfortable. That is where these qualities matter most. Beauty still matters, but beauty now has company. The Quizma eventually understands that attraction is ignition. It can start the engine, but it cannot guarantee the journey. Character determines whether 2 people can survive the mileage. So imagine him entering another room, automatically noticing personalities, performances, insecurities, and social rhythms, until one woman says something intelligent and he looks over. Later, she initiates the conversation. Something uncomfortable happens, and she handles it with maturity. She disagrees honestly. She laughs at herself without losing confidence. She talks passionately about something entirely her own. Then, much later, she remembers a tiny detail he mentioned earlier. He becomes quiet. She notices the silence. He notices that she noticed. Their eyes meet. And suddenly there is no strategy, no hierarchy, no archetype, only recognition. Perhaps this is where the Quizma's evolution becomes complete. He spent years learning how to read people, recognize masks, understand rooms, protect his independence, and become comfortable enough with solitude that he would never bargain away his standards simply to avoid being alone. But eventually the great observer encounters a challenge observation alone cannot solve. He meets someone worth knowing rather than merely understanding. Someone whose intelligence stimulates him, whose initiative meets him halfway, whose maturity creates peace, whose honesty earns trust, whose humility earns respect, whose individuality keeps discovery alive, and whose attention quietly says, "I see you too." And for once, the Quizma stops reading the room, not because he has lost the ability, but because he has finally found something more interesting to read. Beauty may turn his head. Intelligence may turn his mind. Character may earn his respect. But the woman who makes the observer feel observed accomplishes something rarer. And that may be the cleverest twist of all. Because the Quizma entered the room believing he understood exactly how attention worked, only to discover one woman had been doing precisely the same thing. By the time he realized what had happened, the great observer had made one magnificent miscalculation. He thought he was the one paying attention.